Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We're going along on Paris and Syria, and that's because those topics and all the issues attendant thereto are very important, and they deserve a fairly lengthy analysis from, well, I don't know if they deserve it from but two of us, but we're going to do it anyway. We moved into the refugee issue, and this is the thing that's been really sticking in my craw about a lot of this stuff, is that there's this idea that if you are for support of the refugees, especially the 10,000 that the administration was talking about that they want to be able to be admitted into the country, that you are somehow either blind to the threat of ISIS or that you don't care in some capacity, or that you don't recognize it. And along with that, there's this notion that there is nothing in place to screen these people, and that everyone wants them to come in with no second look, which is all of that is completely false. Of course, use me as a proxy. I don't care. Troll me on the blog post and put Facebook comments on the web. We love it. I personally love it. I eat it. I lavish the attention. But I believe that we should be doing more to help the refugees. In fact, I made that argument on the show probably 2 or 3 shows ago. I'm going to use him for an intellectual authority from now on. Rabbi Kaufman has made the same argument today that we need to be doing more to help Syrian refugees, building goodwill in a community that doesn't have a whole lot of goodwill to spare. And I've been criticized by saying, well, someone said this to me, that the first bomb's on me. The first bomb, that God help me if I'm wrong and an attack happens in this country, that I bear the responsibility, aside from the fact that being an awful thing to say to anybody, especially because the converse of, well, every Syrian child that dies because they can't get into this country is on your head, person who said that to me, which is unfair, which I don't think is true. There is a process. There's a process in place to screen these people, and for the United States, it's fairly extensive. The research that I read was that it takes a bona fide refugee, the only way that you can be considered a refugee is by going through the UNHCR process, the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, make an application and be vetted through them first. The UN takes care of a lot of that before they even get to the United States, the second level in the United States process. For a regular refugee, it takes about 12 to 18 months. For Syrian refugees, it's been taking over 2 years. We have about 2,000 in the country so far.
So, all right. So you're telling me that's just to get here,
to get
Europe's
into the country.
Different situation.
Europe is a completely different situation because 7 of the 8, they suspect it's 8 guys, and at least 7 of the 8 were European nationals who were Western European citizens, had European Belgian passports, and as we know, the European Union can freely travel. There are no border restrictions amongst the countries anymore, which is something that they would staunchly defend even in the light of this tragedy. The actions taken by Paris, the temporary shutdown of the entire country, I understand that you're reacting to a crisis. I'm fairly, we try, and here's about the United States. We didn't even shut the border completely down during 9/11. We weren't able to stop every single flight. We grounded a bunch of them, but a few flights were able to get out, and a few flights were able to get in. If you remember those days, there was reporting about how, and that wasn't, and Bush took on some unfair criticism for that by the left, saying, well, if you're going to keep us safe, well, hold on, this is a huge country. The infrastructure has been set up to work a certain way. It's impossible to tighten it down immediately like that. So this idea of locking down the border is talk about a fantasy world.
Yeah.
I think Chris Christie accused Obama of that just the other day.
Yeah.
We're talking about a fantasy world. It's impossible. The screening process is in place. It probably isn't going to catch 100%, but it is in place. That's the point.
One of the things that I hear and I see is the criticism that there are some countries that prioritize who's going to get in and who isn't. And one of the things that twice I've seen from reliable sources is that the Yazidi, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Christians None of them have been granted asylum here. None of them have been granted any kind of refugee status or anything else like that.
I don't know if that's true.
Whereas there's been several thousand Syrian Muslims granted asylum here in the U.S. Australia has said, we are going to prioritize the Syrian refugees in this manner. We're going to take Christians first, and then we're going to take Jews next. And I don't know how many Syrian Jews live there. I don't know. And then at the end, they're going to take Muslims. And I thought to myself, at least somebody is standing up and going, we have a priority list, right? Australia's a predominantly Christian country. They're going to take their common values people first. That brings up an entire other thing. Is that bigotry? Is that religious bigotry? Is that common sense? And so you have this next step of fundamentalism already brewing. That's what's going on.
It's an unbelievably dangerous, short-sighted, and stupid thing to do.
Yeah, but what if you turn around and say, well, geez, we're going to prioritize the Muslims?
If we're talking, prioritize.
What would happen if a country did that? Because countries have already done that.
What I'm saying to you is that I haven't seen anybody reach out and say we need to take Muslims to the exclusion of people first. What I'm saying to you because that's the same kind of stuff that Ted Cruz is coming out and saying we only should be taking Syrian Christians and not letting anybody else in. If you want to confirm for these psychopaths that use Islam to justify their psychopathic murderous behavior, if you want to convince them and the people around them who maybe are on the fence that there is in fact a holy war against Islam, that's the way to do it. Ted Cruz in those comments showed such a lack of poise and insight into this complex problem. Tosses off a bomb like that. If he said that as president, he could incite more conflict with that kind of statement.
Now, I'm going to take the last word on this one, and Lefty's going to poke me in the eye when I'm done. Europe has done a lot to take in a lot of Muslim refugees.
Yes, it has.
And that is why they were repaid. ISIS is going to use whatever excuse it can to bomb whoever they want. And in this case, it was Paris, who at times has had Paris on fire from their own Muslim population. There are areas you can't go into because Sharia is what dominates the area. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter what we do from here on out, people are going to justify these kind of attacks using whatever they can. Now, I took the final word. We're going to be back. We're going to talk about the debate because, you got to love, Joe Biden is not around much anymore, but Uncle Bernie's taking his place as far as crazy stuff that he likes to say. We want to say thanks to all of our sponsors, Petrosian Associates, Lubina's Law Firm, and Des Moines Interest Rates, Halo Capital, Des Moines Interest Rates.com. Maddie, do you ever edit any of this stuff? No? Des Moines Anesthesia PC, they do pain management. They have 2 offices here in Des Moines and Fort Dodge, 515-574-6442. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Go catch Lefty's Hornet Kicking blog at docandlefty.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back right after this break to talk about the Democratic